So how many of you are on Facebook? I'll pray for you. You may have noticed a new graphic that came out this week that talked about tribal gatherings. It is impossible for that girl to be any cuter than she is. It is impossible for her to be any cuter. Can you come up here with that baby? I want the people to see one of the cutest babies. Look at this baby. Oh my gosh. Chris, when she hits 14, you and I will pray together, okay? We'll pray together. What you saw on that graphic was something called tribal gatherings. We want to begin talking about tribal gatherings. And so tonight I want to start by talking about the 12 tribes, the tribes of Israel. They were distinct. They were different. Even though this 12 tribes were brothers, each of the 12 tribes had its own distinction, its own thing that it did. And you know what? Before I do that, this is going to seem awkward, so I'll start with somebody regular. Brandon and your better half, I need you to stand up. And if you don't mind, that couple, the guy with the black hat and the beard, wife with the baby, could you guys stand up? And way over here, guy in a green shirt on the back row, wife in black top and white pants. Yep, that's you. Go ahead, stand up. While we were going through worship, I was asking the Spirit if he had any words for tonight, and he said just one, but it's for these three. I don't know anything about your life, and I'm not assuming that anything is going wrong, but this is the word for you tonight. As a couple, in your relationship, in your life, the things you're dealing with, it's about to get good. It's about to get good for each of you, okay? God bless you. Thank you. So we have these 12 tribes. The first one is Reuben. Reuben is the oldest, and his tribe settled on the east side of the Jordan. In other words, when they came out of Egypt and they went around and crossed the Jordan into Jericho, on the east side, there were 3 tribes that stayed on that side, and the rest went into the promised land. Reuben's tribe was one that stayed on the east side, but they did go into the promised land and help do battle against the Canaanites in that land to take it. The next tribe is Simeon. Simeon is kind of a unique one because they really got scattered throughout of all Israel. They just dispersed even though they had a dedicated land, they ended up all the way through. There was a group, the Levites. Levi and his tribe were known as the priest. They did not get any specific land in the promised land. They were not given a portion of territory. They were told that they were to minister to the Lord. And so the tribes all gathered their offerings and their tithes and sent them in, and the Levites actually lived off of those as they ministered to the Lord. And then there was Judah. And Judah is the group that the lineage of Jesus comes out of. We have guys like David and guys like Solomon and guys like Caleb all came out of the tribe of Judah. And then we have Zebulun. Zebulun, these guys were warriors. They were fighters. You see them in the times of the judges and the times of King David. They always came in to help fight. They were warriors. Then there was Issachar. Issachar is a really unique group because Issachar always understood the signs of the times. They had special knowledge to understand what was going on and what it meant and why it was significant. Then there was Dan. The tribe of Dan actually moved to the very north side. I've actually been to the Tell of Dan where the city was. They moved to the north end of Israel, but they ended up getting engulfed in idolatry and didn't remain faithful. Gad was another one that stayed on the east side of the Jordan. You probably know Gad, even though you may not know Gad, because there was a time when Jesus went to the other side of the Sea of Galilee, which would be on the other side of the Jordan where the Gads remained, and he cast out of a demoniac into some pigs in a place called the place of the Gadarenes. So this is the Gadarenes that were on that side. There's the group called Asher. Asher were in essence the farmers. They were known for rich foods and olive groves and those kind of things. Then there was Naphtali. All of the disciples except Judas came out of the territory of Naphtali. Naphtali's territory was around the Sea of Galilee, and that's where all the disciples except for Judas came from. There was Joseph. Joseph had two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh. So you may have heard of the 13 tribes, but Joseph ends up having a blessing passed on to Ephraim and Manasseh, and they become two tribes. And then the final one is Benjamin. Benjamin is kind of a unique tribe because they stood in a civil war against all of the other tribes. People like King Saul came out of there, Mordecai, Paul, all from the tribe of Benjamin. So there's a very, very diverse group of people. Even though they were brothers, they were very diverse. Some of them were warriors. Some of them were priests. Some of them were wise and some of them were brave. Some of them were farmers, some young, some old. Some made an incredible mark on history and some kind of historically just dwindled out. Some were faithful and some not so much, even though they were all brothers. And I think we know what it's like to have a sibling because sometimes, all the time, our siblings are not really by choice. I remember when I was 7 years old, my dad took me to the hospital and he said, "See that? That's your brother." I didn't have any choice in this at all. There was no family discussion on whether or not we needed a brother. He was 7 years younger than me, and my dad brought him home to our house, and he stayed. And even when I left home and I came back, he was still there. It's just the way it goes with brothers and sisters, because the truth is, whether you have a brother or a sister is determined by the Father, not by you. See, in Mark 3:35, Jesus says this, "For whoever does the will of God, he is my brother, my sister, and my mother." So the criteria is not whether you like them or want them, but whether or not they're pursuing God. So look around the room at the brothers and the sisters that the Father gave you. Yeah, that's a good thing. Shame on you for thinking that. They're good people. You'll like them when you get to know them. But this whole category is brother and sister, but there's another relationship that we have, and we call them friends. Friends. Biblically, friends are described like this in Proverbs 17:17. "A friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for adversity." For those of you who are real Facebook fans, if Facebook made a Bible, it would look like this. A friend is someone you may or may not know who accepts your friend request on Facebook, and this person is born to like and to comment on your post to make you feel good about yourself. That is the FBV version. And the truth be known is, I could stand up here and teach about friends, why we need friends, what a friend is. And the truth is, I don't think I need to do that, because either you already know why you need friends, or you can just read the Bible and figure out why you need friends, or you're not going to listen anyways because you don't want any friends. So what I want to do tonight is I want to speak into those who know the importance of having friends, but maybe right now just don't seem to be connecting with anybody, looking for friends. And let me show you some friends in the Bible. Jonathan and David are probably the most popular, well-known friends in the Bible. But you know, these two guys are friends, and Jonathan's dad wants to kill David. Can you imagine being friends with somebody whose parent wants to kill you? It's kind of a unique time for David to be friends with Jonathan. There's a set that are brothers, Moses and Aaron, but these guys have to work together for 40 years. I love my brothers. I cannot imagine working with either one of them for 40 years. And there must have been an incredible bond between these two. Then there's Elijah and Elisha. Elijah and Elisha had this kind of mentoring role, a spiritual father who mentors a future leader. There was another couple named Naomi and Ruth. Naomi being an Israelite who goes over to Moab, and her son marries a Moabite, and her husband and her son dies, and then she becomes great friends with someone of another race. Then there's Paul and Timothy. If you look in Scripture, it clearly says that Paul is older and Timothy is younger. Now, we believe that to be true not only in the physical, but in the spirit. Meaning Paul was training up and mentoring Timothy. Paul wrote to Timothy and said, let no one despise your youth. So we know he's older than Timothy. We look at a couple like Paul and John Mark. Paul and John Mark actually go on a vacation together called a mission trip. And about halfway through it, John Mark decides he don't want to be on this trip anymore, and he leaves. And it causes a great rift between Paul and John Mark. Matter of fact, they don't talk to each other for years. And then finally, they resolve that. And Paul says, bring me John Mark. I want to talk to him. And so they make up, if you will. And then you look at simple things like Jesus and John. And we know the disciple that he loved, but just consider this. Jesus is hanging on a cross, and he says to John, I want you to take care of my mother. And Mary actually goes to live with John for the rest of her life. And then you have Paul and Onesimus, which is really kind of unique because Paul is this traveling pastor and evangelist and apostle, and Onesimus is a slave. And he sends him back to Philemon, who also knows Paul, and says, Philemon, give him a break. He's a good guy. Maybe you look at people like Job. We know he had friends. We know they weren't always the greatest friends to have, and they were definitely with him in a struggle. Or I look at what I call 4 crazy friends. The 4 friends who took the paralytic and cut a hole in the roof and put him down. I had a sermon at one time. It's like the second sermon I ever preached called Everybody Needs 4 Crazy Friends. I look at guys like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. What a story they had for the rest of their life. They smell a little bit like smoke, but there's a story behind it, you know? It's awesome. I look at unique relationships like the Queen of Sheba and Solomon, 2 leaders of nations who got together so one could learn from the other and the wisdom that Solomon had. So I look at these people and I think many of them are very, very similar, but most of them are very diverse. You don't necessarily expect those two to be friends. Do you know that sociologists say that you are the average of your 5 closest friends? Let that sink in. You are the average of your 5 closest friends. So the question may be, do you want to be like your 5 closest friends? It's something about bad company corrupts good morals. I don't know. But let's look at it from the other side. If you want to be spiritually strong, hang out with 5 spiritually strong people. If you want to be financially sound, hang out with 5 financially sound people. If you want to be super friendly, hang out with 5 super friendly people because you'll end up being the average of those 5. And yet, friends end up being a very unique topic in church because there are many people who will leave a church over the topic of friendship. They'll say things like this, I just never could connect to anyone there. No one ever reached out to me. I never seem to find friends there. That church has cliques. They're not a friendly place, which is a lot like saying, nobody ever reached out to me. And it's a sad status. It's a sad thing to think about that you could be in a place like Revive where there are 500 choices and you can't find a friend. That might be a hint of where I'm going. But let me tell you what churches have done because of that. Because of those kind of comments, churches have decided to put together systems to pick your friends. I want you to think about this because some of you remember, like I do, going to a church that had Sunday school. Anybody? Sunday school. This is how Sunday school worked. We looked at your age and we said, you want to be with people your age. So the 20 to 25s were in this class, and the 25 to 30s were in this class, and the 30 to 35s were in this class, and we were age divided. And there was always in church, and still is today, this thing's called women's ministry and men's ministry, because we want to connect you to women and men so you can make a friend. And then what happened truly, if you've been in this game long enough, in about the 70s, we stopped building church buildings and education wings. If you remember those, the education building had all the classrooms in it. We stopped building those and we started moving into shopping centers and warehouses that didn't have education space. So we started this new brilliant thing called small groups. And the truth is, the small group system was driven off the fact that churches no longer had education space. So now all of a sudden we were telling you, you needed to be friends with people in your geographic area. You needed to be friends with people who wanted to study what you wanted to study. You needed to go to their house and eat food at their house and have some kind of Bible study together. And the truth be known, the national average for churches, 32% of their people are in small groups. The unique thing about that is if you go all the way back to the Sunday school system, the national average was 86% of your church was in Sunday school. Why? Because you could come to Sunday school on a Sunday morning and then go to a church service. It wasn't another night. It wasn't another thing. So we had those. And then we moved out of small groups into this thing called affinity groups. That's where you put all the people that like to play golf together and the ones that like to ride a motorcycle together and the ones who wanted to paint and do arts and crafts together. And we said, you're going to find a community in people who like to do the things that you like to do. And then we kind of came probably most recently into something called servanthood groups. And this is what we said. See this group of servants right here? They should be a group because they all are on the worship team. And see all those people at the door? They must have a passion for being hospitable. So let's put them all together because they want to be hospitable. And listen, every one of these systems is good. There's nothing wrong with all of these systems. They can be very, very effective, but it's still the church trying to make a friend for you, trying to tell you who your friends should be or could be. And it gets really, really awkward if you've been in this long enough to have gone through some of these things because there's things about them that don't work. Anybody ever been in a small group that wasn't a good fit? And then you don't know how to tell the leader you want to leave the group? And then he finds out that you joined another group and he wants to know why you like that group more than the group that he had? Yeah, some of you are smiling. Some of you say, I don't want to hang out with people my age. I know a lady in this church who's a wonderful lady, more of a senior, who says, I don't want to hang out with all the old women. Then you get into some groups and they have kids and we don't. So it's kind of awkward that they're always wanting to do something with kids involved, but we don't have kids, or maybe we don't even like their kids, so we don't want to be in this group. Why do I want to hang around people I have nothing in common with, even if I'm the same age? All they do is talk about themselves, and they never do anything that we want to do. It's just what they want to do. But here's the truth. Here's why we're heading toward this thing called tribal gatherings. You will invest in the relationships that you choose to invest in. You're going to be friends with whoever you want to be friends with, and nobody's going to tell you who you should be friends with. Am I right? Because 4 of you are shaking your head. So the church should not have to tell us who our friends are. However, What I think the church can do is create an environment where you can find the people you want to invest in. Create the environment where you can seek out, not by age, not by kids or no kids, not by what Bible study do you want to do, not by any of those things, but just people that I like, people that I enjoy talking to, that I enjoy hanging out with, that I want to spend some time with. Some people, however, need some help on how to make a friend. So tonight, I want to give you some help on how to make a friend. Now, we're going to have something called tribal gatherings. Here's what that means to the church. We're going to put you in an environment where you can find your own friends. And if you guys want to go hang out and watch movies every Tuesday night, or if you want to do coloring books every Saturday morning, you can do that. But you have decided who you're going to be friends with. But we want to put you in an environment where you can find those friends and maybe do a little bit of a mixer activity, something where maybe you could touch base with some friends that you didn't even know you would have because you'd have never thought about talking to them. So if you're ready, you can take your notebook out, and I'm going to give you tips for making friends. I'm serious. Here's tip number one. Tip number one to making friends. You initiate. You initiate a friendship. See, because here's what happens. I'm going to get there. Here's what happens. I listen to people say, well, I was at Revive for 6 months and nobody reached out to me. And all I can think is, how can you be in a place with 500 people and not make a friend? It must be because you didn't reach out to anybody. Because what happens is you come, you sit by yourself and you wait to see if somebody's going to talk to you. Now, I don't know about you, but who wants to talk to somebody that doesn't want to be around anybody? So if you're going to come and say, nobody reached out to me, guess what? The other people in the room are saying you never reached out to them. So everybody sits in the room looking at each other. Nobody's reaching out to each other. Nobody has any friends. You think I'm crazy, but it's the truth. And if you're one of those people who is waiting for somebody to reach out to you, stop that. Stop that. Because that other person in the room is actually sitting there waiting for you to reach out to them. And they might be a great friend, but you'll never know it if you don't initiate. If you want to have a friend, you have to initiate a friendship. If you'll remember, I've said this before, John 15:17, Jesus says, this I command you, that you love one another. The commandment does not say, this I command you, you be loved by the others. It says, you love one another. Now, I agree the other people are also commanded to love you, but you're the bigger person. You're the bigger person. You will love them. You will reach out to them. And Jesus goes on to say, by this all men will know that you are his disciple if you have love for one another. So if you don't have love for one another, it means, I didn't say that out loud. Number one, initiate friendships. Number two, I got the best friendship advice of my life when I was 24 years old. It's a simple statement, but I promise you, it will make every conversation you have with anybody easy. Here's the statement. Everyone is an expert on themselves. Every single one of you is an expert on you. So if I want to be your friend and I want to strike up a conversation, all I have to do is ask you about you. Because you can talk all day and answer every question I give you because you know the answer because it's about you. So if I want to be or strike up or initiate a friendship with someone, the thing I gotta do is I gotta walk up and say, who are you? Tell me about you. Why are you here? Why is your hair that color? It doesn't matter what I say. That person is going to be an expert in order to answer it because I'm always going to ask them about them. And if I always ask you about you, you will always have an answer. Now, if I do that every single week with the same person, you're going to get tired of hearing about them. Find somebody new that has a more creative story that can tell you why their hair is purple because it's a better story than why it's brown. Do you know, like you all are under this cloud, and I don't know if you even know it. Do you know that that is the exact reason why we give you a question during the welcome time? So that you will have something to say when you walk up to somebody. We want you to be able to initiate a conversation, so we give you a question that's basically asking that person, what do you like to eat? What restaurant do you like to go to? How many kids do you have? What's your middle name? It doesn't matter what the question is. You're asking them about them. They're going to know the answer. So it's not going to be awkward where they look and say, I don't know my name. Tip number 3. All right, number 1, initiate. Number 2, everyone is an expert on themselves. All you have to do is ask them questions about them and you will have a conversation. It won't get awkward unless you ask them really weird questions about themselves. Don't ask really weird questions about themselves. Number 3, do not predetermine who your friends can be. Do not predetermine who your friends can be. You might be surprised who you want to be friends with if you don't decide in advance, they have to be my age, they have to have kids like we have kids, they have to like the things I like. Don't do that because you're going to find out that some people that you totally didn't expect end up being good friends of yours. I have friends that are 20 years older than me. I have friends that are 40 years younger than me. I have single friends. By the way, I have their name here, so if you want me to prove it, I can prove it. I have friends who are a different race than I am. I have friends who are not Christians. And some of them are in the room. I have friends. Did you want me to tell you who? Okay. I'm smarter than that. I have friends who are in ministry in the same kind of work I'm in. I have friends with young kids, even though mine are grown and gone. I have friends who like Facebook. Paul Garner. I actually have friends who like Brussels sprouts. Roy Frampton. I have a traumatic event in my childhood over 2 Brussels sprouts. 3 hours of looking at those things. So glad my mom finally left so I could put them in the garbage disposal. Those are not meant to eat. I actually have friends who like cats. Listen, it's a stretch, but they're my friends. I don't go to their houses. That's not true. I have 2 friends that have cats, and I've been to their house. But when they were out of the room, I wasn't nice to their cat. All right. So I told you at the very beginning, tonight is going to be an interactive night. because I want you to put to the test the 3 points I just gave you. Initiate. Everybody's an expert on themselves, and don't predetermine who your friends are. So here's what we're going to do. I want you to look around the room to someone who is not your friend. Maybe you've never met them before. Maybe they're an acquaintance, but they're not a friend. Now hang with me, because what we're going to do in a minute is you're going to initiate a conversation with them. And I'm telling you now, all you have to do is ask them questions about them. And you don't have to worry if they're older than you, younger than you, different color than you. It doesn't matter. Just go ask them questions about them, and you may be surprised that you really like them, and it might be worth getting to know them. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to do something called the 3-minute drill. This is like me giving you the question. Here's the question you're going to ask. Tell me your life story in 3 minutes. Now, wait a minute now. The good side is you only have to listen to 3 minutes. Look at your watch, say go, and cut them off at 3 minutes. Here's why. Because then you're going to give them your life story in 3 minutes. And 6 minutes from now, you're going to initiate a conversation with somebody else. Are you with me? I will tell you when the 6 minutes is up. I need everybody to stand to your feet. I need you to pick somebody out who is not your friend and go ask them to tell me your life story in 3 minutes. Go. Hey, thank you for joining us today. I hope the word today has been impactful. I hope it's been meaningful. I hope there was something said today that struck you in your spirit, that you could ask the Holy Spirit to give you revelation on how you can use that in your life today. We thank you so much for joining us. We'd love to have you join us in the actual services at 9 a.m. or 11 a.m. on Sunday morning at 851 Johnson Avenue in Stuart, Florida.
And if you'd like more information about Revive Church, check out our website. It's reviveusnow.com.
God bless. Have a great day.